James, knowing you don't talk about player injuries, generally speaking, when somebody's coming back from a long absence, what must they show to you and the staff before you're comfortable inserting them in the lineup, whether it's practice or a game?
Yeah, well, Deef we've talked about. I'm assuming that's who you're talking about?
Anybody.
Okay. I'll use Deef for example because we've kind of already talked about him. One of the things that's been great is these live young scrimmages. We've been able to put Deef in there because it's hard to go from not doing anything to go play a game. So, now he's been able to do drill work, he's been able to go into the live scrimmages, and you see him getting more confidence, because it's not just the physical aspect, it's the mental aspect of it as well. So I think that's been really important for us. But I think that's kind of an example. Basically, our guys are with the trainers, and we have a medical document we go over every morning, and that is a guy who's out, a guy who's limited, and then we have an area, basically, he just moved from limited back to full go. And then he comes off of that after a day. And then we have another area, just guys that we kind of keep an eye on just to be aware of certain issues. But that's kind of how it is. And then once they get off of that, then they come into practice, and it's usually individual, and then individual and maybe group, and then individual, group, and team, and then you get them in the game. But it's usually, and again, depending on the issue. If it's just a sprained ankle or if it's a shoulder, I mean, it depends on the issue. Did that answer your question?
James, we talked before about the lack of depth on the offensive line and linebacker. And obviously, that's because of the lingering effects from the sanctions. How long do you think it is until Penn State and your team is fully recovered from those sanctions?
That's hard to say. I think our numbers will get back quicker now because of what's happened the last couple of years. But the issue is some positions, depending on your approach, whether you go heavy junior college or whether you go high school, yeah, you might get your numbers back on the offensive line next year, but they're still going to be almost all freshmen and sophomores, maybe a few juniors. So, if you look at most programs across the country, you usually don't play on the offensive line until you redshirt sophomore year. So I think that's where it'll change. I think our numbers will be back, but we'll still be young. You don't go from being the second youngest team in the country to mature overnight. But it'll gradually happen, and then I think the other thing is, we're going to be more and more aggressive of playing young guys. I think we're just going to have to do that.
Hey, following up on Jeff's hypothetical, I guess we're finding ways to try to sneak around your injury stuff. How far is it? How much of a leap is it from playing in these types of scrimmages to playing in a game?
It's hard to say that. I'm not sure. I think we're close. I think you guys have all seen he wasn't out of practice when you come on Wednesdays, and then he started to come out of practice. And doing more and more. But I think he's getting closer every single day. You'd love to see him this week. I don't really completely control that. The doctors make those calls, and the kids go make that call. His family would be a part of it as well. So, but we're getting close.
How much does the family? I mean, do they usually factor in? Is that kind of like what's that process like as far as if a doctor clears them versus? If they really push them to go? Well,
I guess what I'm saying is whenever we have an injury, significant injury, we pick up the phone and Tim Bream calls the parents and keeps them kind of involved, just like you'd want to know if it was your kid. So that's kind of what I mean by that more than anything. And then, obviously they're talking to their kids about kind of where they're at and how they're feeling and making sure kind of we're all on the same page and ultimately do what's in the best interest of the student athlete.
I know you can't talk about specific commits and how they're going to help your team, but the NCAA does allow you guys to confirm whether or not you're recruiting someone. So can you just kind of clear it up? Are you recruiting Miles Hartsfield?
I don't think I'm allowed to do. I don't think so.
I know.
Well, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like you to talk to compliance and let compliance send me an email. For my 17 years, you've never been able to talk about a specific recruit or a high school. I've been at high schools before, and media has been outside of high school. They want to take my picture in front of the high school. I can't do that. I can say I'm in Pittsburgh. I can say I'm in Philadelphia. I can say I'm in Harrisburg. But I can't even talk about a specific high school. So I don't know how I can talk about a specific recruit. So if you email Matt and he says it's okay, then maybe I'll consider it a demo.
Where are you going this weekend?
I think I'm in Philly this week.
Philly, is that where you're planning to go before everything got canceled a week or 2 weeks ago? Is that?
Yeah, I was, but that was a separate trip.
Okay.
It's all usually based on games. So
right.
At the very beginning of the season, we say these are all the guys that are committed to us, and these are priority recruits, and I'm going to try to get to them. And then the problem is, like, we were supposed to go to a local game, and I wasn't able to go to that, and then so it doesn't always work out perfectly. But I'm going to be with Sean Spencer, I think, for Thursday night, all day Friday, and most of Saturday.
We be using the chopper or going to attach?
What do you want me to do?
Whatever you're comfortable doing.
Yeah, we're probably going to use the chopper, because I think I'm going to 3 games, and I think the games are in Philadelphia and Allentown, so I don't know how you do it without that.
You've been a big proponent of information.
So when I said Philadelphia, I apologize, just threw Allentown out there.
Now you're just going everywhere.
That's part of it too. Most of my time is going to be in Philadelphia, but I'm going to be in the Allentown area as well.
Information control has been a big thing that you've been a part of. Who's injured, not talking about injuries, personnel and whatnot. When you have 2 losses and bye weeks in between, fans come up with a lot of ways to fix your problems that you've obviously never thought of. And someone who reads all this stuff, how do you find that balance to create a climate where people understand where the program is, and at the same time maybe stick to the sorts of things that you don't want to talk about?
And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I've had since we arrived here, is how do we get the fans and everybody excited and engaged and back in the stadium and selling 107,000 out without setting up false expectations as well. And when you have a fan base like us, fan is short for fanatical. I mean, they're passionate about Penn State, which I love. And when things are going well, there's nothing better than that. When you hit a rough spot, that can make it challenging. And I think the other thing is, what I've always tried to do is insulate the players from it as much as you possibly can. You deal with it as the head coach. But with social media now, it's really difficult to do that. It's really difficult to do that. So that's the hard part. That's the challenge. And then what you don't want to do is, you don't want to be talking about all these things before the season starts, because you're trying to get people excited. And then you don't want to be talking about all these things after a loss, because then people think you're making excuses. But we're just going to stay positive. We couldn't be more excited about the direction of the program and where we're going. Being successful in major college football is tough, and it's challenging, and it's hard. We're just going to stay positive and keep grinding through it. And I know we'll all like where we're at soon enough.
Have you considered changing anything about how you present some of this information? I mean, when you're watching the team warm up before Michigan, you can see that Donovan Smith's limping around a little bit. It's not like a secret that he's not 100%, and maybe people don't see that on the broadcast, or maybe they don't see it if they're not at the game. I mean, maybe if they know that and they know the offensive line isn't. I mean, how do you balance?
Yeah, guys, I'm just like the players. I'm just like probably all of you. I'm growing, and I'm trying to find the best ways to do things. My first perspective always is on coaching and with the players, and what I know other coaches do to try to gain advantages. That's number one. What I'd like to do is get to a point where our fans are just so supportive of our players and our coaches and our program that they give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know necessarily what the right answer is and what the balance is. I know from a coach's perspective what we're trying to do and constantly gain information, and I don't necessarily like to give it out. It also can cause some issues, because then a guy doesn't play as much one week, and people come up with all types of theories of why maybe he didn't play as much that week, and it may be because of a sprained ankle. But we don't talk about those things.
Take 2 more.
James, you were saying about the information stuff with Ben's question. I'm coming out of right field on this one, but what's the process like when because you read everything. Who does that?
I've read less the last 2 weeks. I'll admit that. I've read less.
But who compiles that for you? Because I imagine you don't just sit there patrolling the internet.
Yeah, no, it's pretty easy. I mean, I usually get in pretty early. I usually get in at least an hour, but besides everybody, but maybe Bob Shoop. And it's magnified right now because Bob's family's not here. So I usually get in early, and the first thing I do is I get on and I scan, articles about Penn State football and find out kind of what's going on. And then I get on ESPN. I want to know what's going on nationally, because the other thing we do is ESPN or Sports Illustrated or Sporting News or whatever it may be, because the other thing we do is we constantly pull out articles of issues that are going on in our country in our profession. young men that are making poor decisions, and I use that in PowerPoint. So then I send out a mass text. I want these things in our PowerPoint presentation with our players every single day to remind them about making great choices. But no, I usually just kind of do that in the morning. Now, Mike Hazel or some other guys, they might see a business article or a leadership article that I like. Usually when I go on the road, I get a travel book, and there'll be a couple articles in there that I think are pretty good. But I usually do my own kind of looking around the internet for stuff.
Hey, Coach, you've been big on positive mental attitude, especially given your background and stuff. The last 2 weeks, it seems like there might be a little bit of frustration building with the offense. Has it been a challenge? I mean, I wouldn't say a challenge, but have you had to go a little bit deeper to try to keep those guys, try to preach the positive message to everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have seen since we've been here, we're very optimistic, we're very positive, we're very excited and appreciative about being at Penn State and where we're going and what we're going to be in the very near future. And that's the thing that's exciting. Is you watch the tape and you come out to practice. We're that close. I know it doesn't always seem that way, but we're that close. So no, but yeah, I mean, is there natural frustration when you're not playing as well as you'd like to, from the player's perspective, from the coach's perspective, from the fans' perspective? Yes. And you address that and you say those things are natural, but focusing on that negative energy is not going to get us where we want to go. What's going to get us where we want to go is, here's the problems, how do we solve the problems, and what are we going to do moving forward? And that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. And I think our guys understand. I think the other thing is going into the meeting every single day and saying, look, I didn't call a perfect game. I didn't make great decisions. You didn't play a perfect game. Now what are we all going to do together to get where we want to go? And I think that's important, that the players see that you're taking responsibility as well. We're all in this thing together. The fans, the media, whether you guys like it or not, the students, the community, the former players, the coaches, the current players, everybody. We're all in this thing together. As long as we all stay positive and keep working, we have a very bright future.
James, what's your approach with junior college players? Will you be scouring those ranks to maybe make this young roster a little older for next year?
We're not a big junior college recruiting program and staff. Does that mean that we won't recruit junior college players? No, we'll look. We got great relationship with Lackawanna. We've known those guys for a very, very long time, and other junior colleges. So we'll look around, and there may be one or two players that make sense for Penn State. Making sure they're the right fit academically, socially, athletically, the whole package. We got a great opportunity to offer them. There's no doubt about it. When you look at our roster, you say I can come in and have an opportunity to compete. So we'll look at that, but it's going to have to be the right situation and the right fit.
Thanks, Coach.